Level 1. The Curious Beginner. You're 22. Right now, you're parked in your childhood bedroom, the one at your parents' place. A laptop sits on the desk in front of you. Your checking account holds exactly $500. Something in you keeps whispering that this life is stalled. Last semester, you walked away from community college. Part-time, you sort packages onto conveyor belts at a fulfillment center. You can't stand it. Last week, a friend sent you a clip of some guy turning a single weekend of online poker into $95,000. You've replayed it 14 times now. It won't leave your head. You load $150 onto a poker site and take a seat at a $2 table. 45 minutes later, it's all gone. Your hands won't stop shaking, your heart is hammering. You load another $150. That one disappears too. You send in the last $200 sitting in your account. This time you walk away $80 up. Something ignites in your chest, a feeling the fulfillment center has never once given you. You cash out $280 and spend some of it on a poker strategy book. 2 days later, you've finished it. Next, you track down a free training series from a well-known pro. The whole series is done within a week. You drop down to micro stakes, 2-cent, 5-cent hands. On your off days, you put in 8-hour grinds. Afterward, you pick apart every session, rewatching every hand you lost. Pot odds start making sense. So does position. Ranges, equity, reading an opponent's hand, it's all coming together. None of your friends get it. Neither do your parents. Your mom suspects you're developing a problem. Your dad just wants you to find a real job. You try telling them this isn't gambling, it's studying a craft, and you're trying to go pro. They nod, they smile, the same way people always do when they're humoring you. It doesn't matter to you. Something has locked into place, and you already know this is the life you're choosing. You have no idea yet where that choice is going to lead. Level 2. The Online Grinder. You're 24 now, 7 months out from the day you moved out of your parents' place. The studio you rent sits in a cheap part of town, 2 monitors squeezed onto a desk in the middle of the living room. That's the whole of your office. Every other corner of the apartment barely registers anymore. On a normal day, you grind 9 hours. Some days it stretches to 12. On weekends, when the recreational players are loosest and drunkest, it can hit 15 straight. The number of tables running at once floats between 6 and 9, occasionally climbing to 12 on the screens. Your brain has been trained to fire off separate decisions on every table at once, practically a parallel processing machine. The money is real money. By this point in the year, you've cleared $16,500. Compared to the fulfillment center, it's a clear win. Compared to what you pictured when you started, it's nowhere close. Variance. The gap between what probability says you should be running and what's actually happening now sits at the center of your head. You can play flawlessly for 40,000 hands and still be in the red. You can play badly and still cash out a winner. No concept in this game is crueler, and none is more essential. A spreadsheet logs everything. Win rate down to the decimal, hourly rate, variance by stake level, a running list of which opponents are worth your time and which aren't. A mental database has built itself around the regulars at your stakes. Who bluffs like it's going out of style, who clings to a pocket pair until the bitter end. Your social life has basically dissolved. Your girlfriend walked out 3 months ago, telling you she couldn't compete with a laptop, and you didn't argue, because she wasn't wrong. The kitchen's gone cold for months. Delivery shows up at your door every night instead. You've put on roughly 18 pounds. Your back aches constantly. Your eyes burn enough that a bottle of eye drops lives permanently on the desk, getting used a dozen times a day. In exchange, your bankroll has swelled to $25,000. You're beating every limit you sit at, and the feeling that you're on the edge of something bigger won't leave you alone. Your only real colleagues these days are other grinders scattered across a handful of private chat rooms, people you've never once met face to face. You know their screen names, their styles of play, and you trade strategy notes and hand histories with them like clockwork. Some nights, the group argues hard over whether a light 3-bet from the small blind is even profitable at your limit. And that argument is the closest thing you have left to friendship. Tilt still finds you now and then, that moment when emotion overrides strategy entirely. One night you drop a massive pot to a player chasing a backdoor flush draw who hits it right on the river. Rage builds in your chest, pushing you to jam every hand just to win the money back. to raise with garbage purely to punish the universe for the unfairness of it. But you've learned to catch the feeling early, close every table, pace the apartment, knock out a few dozen push-ups, and wait for the heat to cool. The ones who can't control tilt rarely last. You've watched it play out on the forums. Bankrolls torched in a week, players rage-quitting mid-session, angry screenshots posted for the world to see. You promise yourself you'll never end up as one of them. Level 3. The Live Casino Player. You're 26, sitting on a bankroll of $65,000. You've decided to make the full jump to live play. Real chips, real cards, and faces across the table you can actually see and read, instead of just lines of text on a screen. The online grind kept the lights on, but it was wearing you down from the inside out. You drive about 40 minutes to a casino nearby, past the slot machines and the blackjack pit. The air a mix of cigarettes, floor polish, and something close to desperation. You sit down at a $5 no-limit hold'em table and buy in for $600. The first time your hand touches the stack, it's shaking, a feeling that vanished from your life years ago. Live poker runs on a completely different clock. Slower, around 25 hands an hour, instead of the 600 you were used to online. You fold again and again as the cards stay cold, while the old man to your right only ever moves in when he's holding the absolute nuts. You watch, you listen, and you start sizing up everyone at the table. The woman in dark sunglasses is the table regular, tight, rarely bluffing. Whenever she raises, you fold unless you're holding something genuinely strong. The man across from you in a golf polo is a tourist passing through. A little drunk, playing every single hand. He's your mark. The kid in the hoodie next to you is another pro, roughly your level, not a target, and you make a point of staying out of pots with him. 3 hands into your session, you're holding a pair of queens. The polo shirt guy fires a big raise on the turn, his hand trembling slightly as he pushes the stack forward. You remember what you just learned. A shaking hand on a big bet usually means strength, not weakness. But the speed of his push doesn't match the rhythm he's shown all session. It reads more like a bluff than a real hand. You call. He flips over a busted draw and drops the first pot of the day straight into your stack. That hand teaches you something more useful than the theory alone. A shaking hand isn't automatically a strong one. It has to line up with the rhythm and context that came before it. Calm, easy confidence, on the other hand, is often exactly where the bluffs live. You start paying closer attention to timing tells, the way people stack their chips, the way they guard their cards, the way their eyes flick to the board the second the flop hits. Every small detail is information, and every piece of information is an edge at this table. You're putting in close to 45 hours a week in the card room now, living on caffeine and whatever the casino kitchen is serving. A so-so burger from the counter next to the poker room becomes a 3 times a week habit, simply because the kitchen is steps away, and you never want to leave a table when the game is running good. The money keeps coming, up $21,000 after your first 3 months. People start recognizing you. Regulars nod hello. The floor staff know your name. You're nowhere near famous, but you're becoming a fixture of the room. You've found a world of your own, the feeling of belonging to something, which is new to you in a way nothing else has ever been. Level 4. The Tournament Player. You're 28, 2 years into playing cash games, sitting on a bankroll of $155,000. Cash games keep you afloat, but the glory lives in tournaments. The big names, the huge scores, the chance to change your life in a single weekend. You decide to take a shot at the tournament circuit, starting small. $600 buy-ins at local casinos, $1,200 at the bigger venues. Tournaments turn out to be a completely different animal from cash. The structure rewrites every old rule. You start with a fixed stack, blinds climbing every 30 minutes. No walking away, no rebuying past the early levels. Survive and accumulate, or go home with nothing. Those are the only 2 roads. The variance here is even crueler than cash. You can play flawlessly for 10 hours and still bust to a bad beat 2 tables from the end, or run deep through 100 tournaments in a row and never once reach a final table. Some events you cash, some you go deep in. Your first final table comes at a $2,000 buy-in event at a casino in Indiana. You finish 4th and walk away with $41,000. On the flight home, it finally feels like you've arrived at something real. Then 5 straight months go by without a single cash. $52,000 of your bankroll evaporates chasing the next big score. You start questioning everything. Whether you're just running bad or actually playing bad, whether the game has passed you by, whether the kids learning from solvers and GTO software are simply better than you now. You hire a coach, paying $2,500 for 10 hours of one-on-one work with a player who's made final tables at the World Series. He tears your game apart, exposing leaks you never knew you had, then teaches you to adjust your pre-flop ranges based on stack depth. More than anything, he teaches you ICM, the independent chip model, which governs how a chip's value shifts depending on what's left of the prize pool. Chips in a tournament aren't cash. Late in an event, a single chip is worth a different amount to every player at the table, depending on their stack and position. That lesson gets tested almost immediately. In your next event, you reach the 9-handed bubble-holding AK in a near-bubble spot. Old you would have shoved without thinking. This time you run the ICM math, realize the cost of busting outweighs the reward of winning the pot, and you fold. The player next to you shoves a weaker hand right after and busts. You make the money on the strength of one decision to do nothing. Your game sharpens fast after that. The cashes start coming back, and you finish third in a $3,500 event in Las Vegas, walking away with $130,000. Variance gives and variance takes, and you're slowly learning how to survive both sides of it. Something about yourself surprises you along the way. You genuinely love the tournament grind. You love the 14-hour days. You love the mental exhaustion at the end of a level, when your brain feels like pudding. You love the moment you make the money bubble and can finally exhale. You love the feel of a final table with cameras pointed straight at you. The nerves feel different now. Not fear, but anticipation. You're a tournament player down to the bone. Cash games will follow you for life because they pay the bills. But tournaments are what you actually dream about, and the real reason you got into this game in the first place. You're on the road for events across the country, living out of a suitcase for weeks at a stretch, staying in cheap hotels near the venues to cut costs, eating at the same handful of airport chains in every city you pass through. The same faces start showing up at every event, the same regulars, the same pros. You're slowly becoming one of yourself. They nod at you now. You nod back. Your place in that tribe is slowly becoming real. Level 5. The high-stakes regular. You're 31. Your bankroll rebuilt to $430,000. You've moved to Las Vegas for good. Your apartment sits well off the strip, and you only head over there when you absolutely have to. The tourists and bachelor parties belong to a different world than yours. Your world lives in the poker rooms of the casinos the regulars favor, the Bellagio, the Aria, the Wynn. You've moved up to a new stake entirely. $15-30 no limit. Minimum buy-in is $6,000, the floor bet is $30, and a single pot can swing $12,000 in a matter of minutes. At this level, the opposition isn't tourists anymore. It's pros, wealthy businessmen who treat poker as a hobby, and every so often, a real whale. A whale is someone with more money than skill, convinced he can beat the pros at their own game. He's the profit engine of the table, and the reason you're still sitting at it. You and the other regulars share an unspoken understanding. Don't tangle with each other unnecessarily, and wait for the whale. The moment he sits down, the air changes. The table quiets. Positions get recalculated. Silent alliances snap into place. You're all sharks now, circling the one body in the water that doesn't belong. This time the whale is a successful real estate developer who fell for poker after catching a few televised events. He's brought $120,000 to burn, and a genuine belief he can beat the table. He cannot. The table takes turns extracting his money politely. No showing off, no jabs at his ego. You let him win a few small pots. Compliment him when he makes a decent fold. You want him walking back through that door tomorrow. One night he calls a medium top pair into a pot where you're holding a set. You keep your bets small on the flop and turn, just enough for him to keep calling without getting spooked. Only on the river do you size up a bet big enough to extract real value without scaring him off the call. He loses the pot but leaves the table happy anyway, since he'd taken a smaller pot off you earlier, one you'd let go on purpose. And he does come back, steadily, for 5 straight months before he finally stops for good. By then he's dropped roughly $380,000, spread out across you and the other regulars. To his friends, he'll say he broke even. Almost nobody who plays this game tells the truth about their results. Your life has settled into its own rhythm. 6 nights a week at the tables, sleeping through the day, hitting the gym 4 mornings a week right before bed. You run into other pros at the gym sometimes. A nod, nothing more. Everyone in this world carries a few secrets, and everyone respects everyone else's silence about it. By your 31st birthday, your bankroll crosses 7 figures for the first time in your life. It doesn't feel like wealth. It feels like having a job that's extremely specific and extremely strange. Level 6. The Sponsored Pro. You're 34. Last year you won a major televised tournament. Not the main event, a prestigious side event at a World Poker Tour stop. The final table streamed live, drawing roughly 1.5 million viewers. You made it to heads up against a player who already held 2 previous titles. On the deciding hand, you're both holding something real. You've got 2 pair, he's got top pair with a weak kicker. You jam all in on the turn, not because you're certain you're ahead, but because you've clocked him playing scared all match. He calls. The board doesn't save him, and the title is yours. You walk away with $910,000 and a trophy, but the thing worth more than either is the attention that follows. A major online poker site calls the following week with a sponsorship offer. Their patch on your shirt at every televised event, a weekly stream on their platform, appearances in their branded tournaments. In exchange, $175,000 a year, plus expenses, plus a cut of referral revenue. You sign. You're a face now, not a famous one. Nowhere near the bracelet winners or the $10 million high roller champions, but a face the poker world recognizes anywhere. People stop you at airports for photos. Strangers tag you online. Some are fans, some are still bitter about a hand they think you got lucky on 4 years ago, and they're determined to remind you about it. You have an agent, a manager, and a social media presence you no longer fully control. A team of professionals shapes your image for you now. A sunglasses line carrying your name launches, along with a training video series and a run of merchandise stamped with your name. Poker still matters, but it's no longer the only thing pulling at your attention. You're constantly on the move: the European Poker Tour, the World Series, the Aussie Millions, the High Roller Series in the Bahamas. Roughly 230 days a year, you're sleeping in a hotel room. Meals come from casino restaurants and room service. There are stretches of weeks where you genuinely forget what your own apartment back in Vegas even looks like. Poker has turned into a lifestyle, and the lifestyle has turned back into poker. At this point, you're no longer sure which one you actually signed up for. Level 7. The High Roller. You're 37. You've decided to take your shot at the highest stakes cash games in the world. These are the games played behind closed doors at casinos in Macau, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, London. Minimum buy-in of $220,000. A single hand can swing more money than most people earn in 10 years. You have never been so scared and so alive at the same time. The first table you sit down at, you've got $550,000 in front of you. The faces around it are anything but ordinary. A hedge fund manager flown in from Hong Kong, a Russian businessman whose money nobody can quite account for, a tech billionaire whose face you've seen on magazine covers, and 2 familiar faces, pros you've crossed paths with on the tournament circuit. The blinds run $1,500 and $3,000. A standard raise alone is $10,000. Pots can clear $60,000 before the flop even comes. Your entire sense of what money even means has to be rewired. These chips have to register as nothing more than numbers. Fail to make the right fold with $90,000 in the pot, and you go broke. Fail to fire a correct 3-bet bluff for $70,000 when the moment calls for it, and you get exploited without mercy. The money has to stop being money, at least in your head, at the table. You win that first session big, up $310,000 when the game finally breaks at 6 in the morning. Walking back to your hotel room through a nearly empty casino, you feel like you're floating. The next 3 sessions go the other way entirely, down almost $950,000 in 9 days. You sit in your hotel room shaking in waves. In one of those sessions, you flop a set and fire all the way, certain you're ahead the whole hand. On the river, the tech billionaire rivers an absurd straight off a hand he had no business still being in. A $180,000 pot vanishes from your stack in under a second. You call your coach. You call a therapist too. Then you call your parents. Your mom asks if you're okay. You tell her you are, just tired, and that you love her. You don't tell her what you've actually been doing. She wouldn't understand it. At this point, you're not entirely sure you understand it yourself either. This world isn't measured in poker skill alone. It's a psychological war, a test of bankroll management, and the ability to not let a brutal stretch break you, so you can sit back down tomorrow with the exact same focus and the exact same confidence as if none of it happened. Every cell in your body is screaming at you to get up and run as far as possible. You sit down anyway. You play, you grind, and you claw back roughly $650,000 over the next 3 weeks. You're still down overall. But the thing that matters most is that you're still in the game. Level 8. The business. You're 39, and a question keeps nagging at you. If your wealth depends entirely on what happens at one table, it'll always be capped by how many hours you can physically sit there. The first idea comes from an old friend: fronting buy-ins for other players in exchange for a cut when they win. You pick 3 up-and-coming faces on the regional circuit, putting in $210,000 over your first year, split 50-50. One goes broke within a single quarter. One limps along break-even all year. The third is a different story entirely. He has an explosive season, makes a final table at a major event, and nets you $145,000 from that one tournament alone. Around the same time, you try a different angle, an online course, sold once instead of monthly, $250 flat for the full library of hand history breakdowns. The first 6 months bring in modest numbers, fewer than 400 buyers. You realize you can't do it all yourself: editing, running ads, answering customer messages. A part-time assistant comes on at $3,000 a month, and course revenue starts climbing steadily, hitting $40,000 a month by the end of year 1. A YouTube channel goes up alongside it, not to sell anything, just to build a name. You post breakdowns of famous televised hands. Growth crawls all through the first year, but in year 2, a single video goes viral, pushing the channel past 50,000 subscribers in a matter of weeks. Winnings from your high-stakes years get funneled into something totally unfamiliar: real estate. You buy a duplex in an up-and-coming suburb, despite knowing almost nothing about leases or property tax. All of that gets handed off to an outside management company. One morning you sit down with that month's full income breakdown: cash game winnings, backing cuts, course revenue, rental income. For the first time, what came from sitting at a table is less than half the total. The feeling is strange and oddly relieving. Your game shifts in a way you never planned. One night you drop a big pot and notice your stomach doesn't twist the way it used to. That loss is just one line among many now, not the survival of the entire month. That same relief ends up sharpening your game. No longer shaking through the big decisions, you start making the hard folds, firing the risky bluffs you used to be too scared to pull off, and your win rate at the cash tables climbs noticeably that year. Talking with other pros your age, you notice a pattern. The ones who collapse fastest after a losing year are always the ones with exactly one source of life: the table. Nothing else to lean on once it turns on them. You've never stopped loving poker, but now it feels more like a profession you've chosen than the single thread keeping you from falling. And that distance changes everything about how it feels to sit back down. Level 9. Hall of Famer. The call comes on an ordinary afternoon while you're sorting through a stack of tax receipts. You're 47, and the voice on the other end tells you that you've just been voted into the Poker Hall of Fame. You run through the eligibility criteria in your head. At least a decade in the game, having faced the best players of your era at the highest stakes, and being recognized by your peers, not just for skill, but for integrity and what you've given back to the game. By now you've put in 25 years. In the few seconds of silence after the call, what flashes through your mind isn't trophies or winnings. It's a 22-year-old kid, hands shaking, loading $150 onto a $2 table in his parents' guest bedroom. Career tournament earnings have crossed $21 million. Add in what you've made at cash games, the part that never shows up in any public stat, and your total poker fortune lands somewhere around $34 million. On a shelf at home sit 3 WSOP bracelets, a trophy from a World Poker Tour stop, and a row of smaller titles you don't even fully remember the names of anymore. The ceremony happens on a night near year's end, in a crowded banquet hall. One of the legends whose name you read in the very first strategy book you bought at 22 walks up, shakes your hand, and calls you a colleague, a word that makes you turn away for a second to hide your face. Your speech ends up shorter than you'd planned. You name your first coach, the one who taught you ICM, a handful of players whose moves you quietly studied and stole from for years, and your parents, who sat through countless holidays without you there. One truth you don't say out loud in the speech, but think about all the same standing up there. You never got married, never had kids. 2.5 decades of constant travel never left room for the kind of lasting connection you once dreamed about when you were young. It's not something you regret, just a cost you've learned to live with, the way every profession carries a price of its own. That night, once the last of the guests have cleared out, you're still sitting alone at the hotel bar where the event was held, turning the medal over in your hand. You order a whiskey, something you almost never drink, and wonder if that 22-year-old kid could have ever believed where this road would actually lead. You're still playing, with no plans to stop, but the drive behind it has shifted completely from 20 years ago. Nothing left to prove, just a pure love for the game with nothing else mixed in. Level 10. The Legend. 42 years. That's how long you've given to this game, and this year you turned 64. Those 18-hour cash sessions now live only in memory. Not because you couldn't, but because your body started telling you to stop sooner, and because there's no one left you need to prove anything to. Your calendar now runs on honorary events, charity tournaments where a slice of every buy-in goes to a children's hospital, and once a month a small cash game with the old crew, whoever's still around and still able to sit at a table. A new role lands on you almost by accident, a seat behind the broadcast desk for major televised events. 42 years of experience gets poured into every line of commentary, and younger viewers start recognizing your voice more than your old bracelets. A few hours each week go to reviewing hand histories with a small group of young players, entirely free. The reason's simple. Years ago, others did the same for you without charging a dime, and now it's your turn to pass it forward. One night, sitting down at an ordinary $1 table just to pass the time, you notice the kid across from you. Can't be more than 22 or 23. His hands shake as he pushes a thin stack of chips into the middle, his eyes carrying that same mix of fear and electricity you recognize instantly. There's a moment you have to look twice, because the feeling is too familiar. Not the face, but that exact shaking hand you once had yourself, in a small bedroom at your parents' place, the year you turned 22. You just give a small nod, a quiet smile, and turn back to your own hand. The kid has no idea who you are, and it doesn't matter in the slightest. A circle quietly closes in that room without anyone else noticing, except you. It started with a curious kid in an old bedroom, ran through an honorary medal, and ends in this exact moment, sitting beside a younger version of yourself, completely invisible to him. 42 years since that first $150 deposit, and you're still sitting down at the table. And the love for this game, strangely enough, is exactly as intact as it was that very first night, never once faded. That's the life of a professional poker player. Across every level, each one demands something new and takes something new in return. But for anyone with enough patience, enough discipline, and a little luck riding alongside, it remains one of the strangest, most worthwhile ways a person can choose to live.